Hi, everyone, and good morning to all of you who are in the Western Hemisphere. Good afternoon, those that are in the Eastern Hemisphere. I'm super excited to welcome you to our very first stream of 2024. My name is Anya, and I'll oversee business development at K-Mine. Before we dive into today's content, I'd like to remind you to visit and follow our LinkedIn page. It's the best place to stay updated with all of our latest announcements and upcoming streams. Also, a big shout out to everyone for joining us today. Your support means the world to us. And also, please meet our geologist, Tatiana, who is the creator of this webinar. Tatiana, hi.
Hi, Anya.
Tatiana will answer your questions in the end of the stream, so please put your questions in the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer it in the end of the stream, or also follow our replies in the comment section as well. Sometimes we reply there as well. So in today's webinar, we'll be focusing on key moments you need to think about before acquiring a mining asset. Also, for those of you who's attending PDAC 2024, we're super excited to announce that we are hosting a special event dedicated to the broader topic of investment in the mining industry. We'll bring together experts from geology, technology to discuss the risks associated with acquiring mining assets, and a topic which basically we'll touch upon briefly today. But it's more detailed event, and it's scheduled for Sunday afternoon, March 3rd, and it's free of charge for all PDAC attendees. So if you're interested, please scan the QR code that you see on the screen to register. All right, so let me just, for those of you who don't know anything about our company, let me just give you a brief introduction about what we do. We are on the market since 1994, so this year is 30 years. We started in Ukraine, and since then we've grown quite a bit. Now you'll find us not only in Europe and Asia, but also in the United States, Canada, and through partners in places like Chile, Brazil, Australia, and South Africa. Our team is also pretty big. We have developers, surveyors, geologists, and mining engineers on board. Some of our team members also specialize as qualified persons for NI 43 and JORC reports. So we also work with a diverse range of clients. Our approach is pretty cost effective, so we can work with the small exploration groups and also big corporations. When it comes to our software, it's like Swiss Army knife for the mining industry, designed to walk you through every step of your mining project, from exploration to reaching full production. It combines everything you need into 12 models that work for open pit and for underground mines. So you can pick and choose the models that best fit for your workflow, whether you're looking to use just one module or leverage all 12. The software makes it easy since everything operates from one single interface. These models also are good for tasks like geological data, processing, surveying, and even developing optimized mining plans for short or long term. So you can see all of these processes unfold in real time if you connect our software with IoT devices or dispatch systems, which really helps in making quick and informed decisions. So our software is a result of our real-world experience developed to address the challenges we encountered in our consultancy work, as designed to help with evaluating projects, creating digital twins, and planning the entire life cycle of a mine, making your job easier and more efficient. And our team is always ready to assist with creating 3D models, planning strategies, and estimating resource and reserves. But it's not just an add-on, it's a part of our commitment to ensure your success. Whether you at the stage of exploration, development, production, we're here to offer that extra layer of support through our consulting services. So if you're interested in learning more about what we offer and how we can help with your project, please reach out to us in the comment sections. All right, so today's meeting will focus on the key aspects crucial for investors in mining projects. Our agenda includes an examination of several vital areas, 10 to be precise, starting with the accuracy and dependability of exploration data, creation and interpretation of geological models, and assessment of mineral resources. We will explore the behavior of minerals throughout enrichment processes, assess the financial risks in evaluating project profitability, and consider the impact of infrastructure, logistics, alongside to the production of marketable ore and concentrate. We will also discuss the significance of legal documentation, the necessity of incorporating all variables in the conversion from resource to reserve, and the opportunities for ongoing exploration and resource augmentation. Together, these topics are essential for making well-informed investment decisions in the field of geological exploration and mining projects. All right, so let's start by discussing the NI 43 reports from, for those of you who are in Canada, you should be very familiar with this report. Having such a high quality report like NI 43, NI 43 101, the full name of this report, or JORC report, and it's another report that is usually more popular in those of you who is from Australia, or like Eastern Hemisphere, let's put it this way. So having this report is good. It gives you certain advantages. However, it's not a Swiss Army knife for investors. Yes, this report might summarize exploration activities and their quality assurance, quality control measures. They also present preliminary economic assessments, detail initial exploration results, or outline the findings of feasibility studies on mineral properties. However, sometimes professionals that create a report like that do not think about who this report is for and overflow their conclusions with details that are not useful for investors. Investors usually require only a summary of the key outcomes for, let's say, from an exploration program rather than exhaustive details of the project. Nevertheless, it's not uncommon for an NI 43 report to be extensive, filled with text, graphs, calculations, and images rather than just a concise summary. Today, we'll be focusing on the practice recommended by leading companies, which is conducting preliminary and feasibility studies and maintaining detailed documentation for internal use. Once these studies are close to completion or finished, the key results are summarized in an NI 43 report for regulatory filings. And this approach ensures that when seeking financing, a company has all necessary studies and technical data consolidated for due diligence processes. Engaging in the detail aspect of a project involves navigating through various fields and considerations. The characteristics of a mineral resource asset can exhibit significant variations, which reflects the dynamic nature of the asset itself. So when we talk about doing your homework before making an investment, it's about looking at a wide range of factors. This includes checking that the person is selling the asset really owns it and can sell it without any issues. It also look into any legal, social, government, environmental issues that could impact the asset worth. Operational details matters too, like how productive the operation is, any potential losses, how much it costs to run, and so on. Infrastructure is also the big one. Things like electricity, water supply, and transportation options are crucial. And don't forget about any previous deals about the asset, like royalties and joint venture terms that could affect the ownership. The terms under which people work there, including any responsibilities the new owner might take on, are important too. Marketing is part of the mix as well. Existing contracts, how market shifts might affect the asset, and if there are any contaminants in the product that could cause issues. We also can't overlook how waste is handled and processed and the costs involved in the shutting down or, let's say, selling the asset. All of these elements are key parts of doing thorough due diligence before you decide to invest. So let's look at this due diligence process in more detail. When you're looking into a project, there are a bunch of things that you need to check out. First of all, you think about how resources are turned into reserves, just like the JORC 2012 guidelines suggest. Plus, remember, Anything from the past or what's happening now could mean extra costs or responsibilities for the buyer. So the JOR code offers a comprehensive framework for evaluating various project aspects. Its checklist, which is table 1 of the code, serves as a helpful guide, allowing you to acquaint yourself with the crucial project details. Now, if there is one big thing you can't overlook, that would be mineral resources. Most of the time when someone is investing, they're essentially betting on the value of this resource or reserves. So getting the lowdown on resources, reserves, and what might be out there is super important for making smart choices. Also, it's important to note that inaccuracies in estimating resource and reserves can really mess up your decision-making process. So that's where we should start. Additionally, what you need to focus on can change depending on how far along the project is. Like if it's a brand new drilling in a new area, or is it picking up where someone left off years ago? So you really need to dive into how the drilling and testing things. If you can, actually go there on the mine site to verify wellhead locations using GPS. You might also need to double check the data, making sure that drill paths don't suddenly veer off in a weird direction, and see that everything's set up just like the original plan said. And if something seems off, especially where the data is pointing, you might even have to do some extra drilling just to be sure. All right, so let's talk about what we need to keep an eye on when it comes to drilling and sampling. First off, we've got to pay attention to the drilling technology being used. Whether it's reverse circulation drilling or diamond drilling, we've got to watch out for any potential sample contamination during extraction. Now, when it comes to the actual samples, we need to be mindful of a few things. It's crucial to consider the type of sample collected, including core separation method, axis orientation, and whether geotechnical studies were conducted. In instances where drill core storage is absent or deterioration is evident, you can use available core photographs, which can help in assessing sample quality. So now let's talk about sample safety during preparation, shipping, and all that. We've got to make sure that they stored properly, and it's a good idea to weigh them before sending and upon arrival. All right, so when we're sending our samples off to the lab, there are some important questions we need to ask. Firstly, we want to make sure we know if the testing method they're using is total or partial, and how it relates to the type of minerals we're dealing with. Then we need to understand the detection limits and how accurate they are within those limits. We'll also want to know all about how they dry the samples and at what temperatures. Next up, it's important to ask about their sample reduction procedures. And last but not least, we've got to confirm that they are keeping the fraction sizes controlled and appropriate during the crushing and grinding process. What is super important is to identify any disparities in sampling and analysis across different drilling campaigns. If multiple companies conducted work on the site over various periods, you have to do a comparative study of the methodologies. Variations in sampling, analytical approaches, and even laboratories used should be considered within the broader assessment of data quality. What's interesting is when there's been quite a time gap between drilling programs. Not usually, but sometimes we see different coordinate systems being used to connect wellheads on the plans. Many people tend to overlook also geological mapping as a source of information, even though it sheds light on the main rock types, geological structures, post-formation changes, and areas of mineralization. For accurate analysis down the line, it's crucial to use clear references and tailor photo-based mapping to the specific characteristics of the site. So now we need to take a closer look at our site's overall database to catch any mistakes. It could lead to problems if we're missing coordinates for wellheads, or if there is a mix-up linking sampling intervals to the correct drill hole ID or sample number. As we go through the data, we should keep an eye out for any sampling periods that might overlap or any information that is missing. It's also important to check that all parameter values are within their expected ranges, making sure they are not too high or too low. It's particularly important to pay attention to any default or missing values, especially for samples that have values below the detection limit. Plus, we need to be clear about the units we're using when we enter data into the database, whether it's parts per million or percentage. Today, we're seeing more and more relation databases popping out. That's why it's really important to get a handle on the structure of the database we're working with and to make sense of the abbreviation used in it. Also, it's common for databases to include fields that are calculated. For example, recovery metrics, which starts off measured in length, get turned into percentages in the database. On top of that, you'll find calculations like net smelter return or metal equivalent. They are frequently part of the package too. It's really crucial to get familiar with the formulas and logical expressions the database uses. Understanding these is key to assessing how continuous the mineralization is and defining ore bodies as project moves forward. As mineral project evolves from the initial discovery through exploration, feasibility study, and into mine production, the financial investment in drilling and sampling ramps up in line with these stages. Moving from the discovery phase to exploration usually means drilling costs start to climb significantly. In cases where it's tough to make geological links between isolated finds, we might not see an increase in drilling anytime soon, even if metal prices are looking good. The main goal of drilling sample boreholes during the exploration phase is to figure out how far the mineralization extends. This often means drilling again and again until the drill comes out on the other side of the mineralized zone, hitting the waste rock. While we can get some clues about the size and direction from geological mapping and geophysical studies, it's important to remember that this information is still a bit of a guess. It helps us to make educated assumptions about where the mineralization starts and stops. When we hit on ore intersections that look good from an economic standpoint, exploration projects can move into what is called the profitability study phase. This step builds confidence for further investments. As we go deeper into exploration, there is a lot more drilling and sampling to broaden our understanding of resources and evaluate the mineral resources across different classifications. These assessments may lay the groundwork for the mining project. Trying to figure out what's underground, we rely on a mix of data from the surface, like our magnetic surveys, mapping and samples, along with what we find from drilling. We also use indirect information from things like borehole geophysics to add to our direct sampling data. Our initial guesses are constantly have to be checked and refined with more and more drilling, and that helps us to get a better grip on the geological details. However, as we reach the point when we've got to be cautious, especially when we're leaning on mineral resource reports that use 3D models. Making sure our geological interpretations are solid really is a key. So you should pay attention at the approach that is used to create 3D model, whether it's done implicitly or explicitly. For implicit modeling, it's really the key to think through why certain composite lengths and cutoff grade values were chosen. You have to also consider geological domains, oxidation zones, effects of weathering, secondary mineralization, and structural features like faults and fault-related tectonic movements. In the realm of explicit modeling, it's crucial to dig into the details of existing plans for bodies to reach the surface, thickness as the lines, geological sections, and plans. This type of modeling leans heavily on 2D geological interpretations. Make sure to check whether the symmetry axis of geological bodies were taken into account, how modeling was approached in areas close to faults, and how the paths of inclined drill holes were projected. Grasping the concept of geological domains is essential for both types of modeling. Domains represent zones that are statistically and geologically consistent, and identifying these limits are critical for defining the shape of the reservoir. Yet not every deposit has a clear-cut domain boundaries, which might lead you to rely on very low sample values to tell apart mineralized from non-mineralized samples. Domain boundaries can be classified in two types, hard or soft. And in cases like coal seams, where boundaries are hard, there are clear separations between different strata, which simplifies the process of integrating and correlating data. On the other hand, soft boundaries, like those found in certain porphyry, copper, gold deposits, might show more gradual transitions between the ore and the surrounding waste rock, making distinctions less clear. The intricacy of a deposit structure, initially when the faults are involved, plays a big role on how accurately domains can be defined. Identifying and incorporating fading or parallel faults into the model can pose a significant challenge. Geologists turn into a variety of data sources, including measurements from depth, gauges, aeromagnetic surveys, Landsat satellite image, and traditional mapping technique to deduce the presence and impact on these faults. Sometimes there are cases of resource assessment based on the result of implicit modeling, which takes into account only mathematical statistics and absolutely does not take into account the geological features of the structure of the field. Conversely, the manual method of creating the resource models often mistakenly ignores the bimodal distribution of context and the need to logarithm the values, hurricane values, overestimated or underestimated cutoff grades in the sample when delineating ore bodies, and so on. At times, it's important to decluster samples, since a high concentration of data points in specific areas can lead to inaccurate estimations of the average and variability of the sample. When the coefficient of variation exceeds 1, it points to a significant local differences within a domain, potentially affecting the outcomes when applying universal scoring methods. Examining plots that show the cumulative distribution of data values or their logarithms can help to determine if the data follows a normal or log normal distribution. These charts are also handy for evaluating different data sets. Say you spot a sharp turn in the graph highlighting a bunch of values with super high gold grades, which isn't rare in gold mining. Sometimes it makes sense to leave those numbers out to keep the coefficient of variation in check and avoid skewing the overall estimate. Nonetheless, there are alternative approaches to incorporate these extreme values into grade estimation. Now, when you're dealing with data, you might have multiple elements to consider, like gold and copper, or different kinds of data coming from, say, diamond core or reverse circulation drill holes. Throwing two variables into a scatter point really can open your eyes on how they play together. It's crucial to recognize the significance of a strong correlation between two variables like content and density, which is specific gravity. For instance, if specific gravity is strongly linked to grade in certain types of ore, like nickel sulfide ores, failing to consider this relationship could lead to an underestimation of the grade. Geological ideas about the distribution of grades often confirm in the report using variography. Variograms give you useful information about the continuity of mineralization and in different directions. If you find yourself evaluating resources without the luxury of just statistical studies, or using the inverse descent weighting method without considering variograms, then you'll want to take a closer look at the size of the blocks. Additionally, consider how many samples were used to figure out the content in each block model. Model block. When we're trying to map out how much of something is and where within a domain, it's pretty critical that these blocks are made uniform and at least match up to a quarter of the average distance between data points in every direction. By checking the number of samples that went into estimating the grades for each block and their average speed, geologists can get a straightforward gauge of how much they can bank on these block estimates. This insight can help even in categorizing parts of the resource as inferred, indicated, or measured. If you've got a block resource model in your hands, and check if subblocking was applied along the edges where it meets the wireframe surfaces during volume calculations. It's also a good move to line up the geological sections or plans with a slice of the 3D model and then see how they stack up against the actual data from drill holes or other sources. This kind of cross-referencing is very valuable for making sure everything adds up. So when it comes to mapping where the ore is and isn't, domain boundaries are key to making sure the estimated ore grades don't accidentally end up being counted in the areas designated as waste. But with certain types of mineral deposits where geological features are more nuanced or gradually blended to each other, those boundaries can get a bit blurry or soft, unlike the clear-cut hard boundaries you'd find at the edges of a coal seam. This kind of flexibility allows for including assay results from samples that might be just outside the strict limit of the domain. And here's another heads up. Be extra cautious when calculating how much ore you've got. The big player in figuring out resource tonnage is the ore's bulk density. It's not one size fits all kind of deal. Bulk density can change a lot from one domain to another and even within a single domain. If you got a plenty of samples, you can model bulk density much like you would with ore content. Yet it's uncommon to stumble upon reports where volumetric gravity is simplified down to one average number per ore type, or sometimes just one number for all types of ore. There are also other factors to keep in mind that will influence how mining goes down the line. Things like geotechnical parameters, trace elements that could affect how well the ore grinds down, and how well you can recover from metals you're after. This leads up into a super fascinating field, which is geometallurgy. So the geometallurgical model acts as an advanced layer to the conventional mineral resource or reserves model, combining geological, mineralogical, and metallurgical information within three-dimensional framework. This integration forms a predictive tool for understanding how minerals will behave during processing. Imagine being on the verge of investing in a mineral project, having received a report estimating 1 million tons of resources in the indicated category, rich in a valuable component. Then, after investing in advancing exploration, including technological sampling, you discover that actually only half of the identified ore can be efficiently processed. The rest of different technological type, and that proves challenging to process and was initially misjudged due to inadequate metallurgical and more aptly geometallurgical testing at early stages. So let's talk about some key pieces of metallurgical info you might need. First of all, the way certain elements appear can really vary. For example, lithium. It can show up as lepidolite, petalite, or spodumene, and each form has its own set of technological quirks. Then there is copper, which is an interesting case because the way you process it can depend a lot on the specific type of copper mineral you're dealing with. For example, chrysocolla, that's something you typically extract through acid leaching, not flotation. Chalcopyrite, on the other hand, is a candidate for flotation, but you wouldn't usually go for acid leaching with it. You also have to watch out for minerals that could throw a wrench into your processing plants, like talc or clays. There is also siderite in ore sands, which can be a real headache because it makes it too tough to get ilmenite efficiently. the type of rock, any changes it's gone through, and how much silica's in there can also make a big difference on how minerals behave metallurgically. This means you can adapt with varying results on how easily or hard it is to process those minerals. Variations in characteristics of rocks can seriously affect how efficiently you are able to grind and process the ore. Take quartz magnetite quartzites as an example. They can present a real challenge due to layers that are difficult to enrich because of the tiny quartz intergrowth mixed in with the ore minerals. And let's talk about oxidation states for a moment. Any changes in these can significantly alter both metallurgical and physical properties of the ore, making it crucial to monitor. In case of graphite deposits, it's not enough just to look at the high content of the ore. The degree to which the graphite-bearing rocks have weathered can drastically change how graphite ore behaves during the beneficiation process. So when is the right time to start geological modeling? You should begin right from the exploration phase. Having a deep understanding of the lithology, chemistry, and mineralogy of your project early on can help you to spot potential issues before they become expensive problems later on. When you create a 3D metallurgical, geometallurgical model, it really brings a lot to the table for decision-making makers. First of all, it's a game changer in reducing project risks because it predicts how the ore will behave throughout the mining and processing stages, and that's invaluable for the entire lifespan of the mine. Then there is a way it transforms resource and reserves management by providing a reliable foundation for geostatistical calculations and reports that follow. It ensures that these resources are optimized in the most realistic way possible. And it doesn't stop there. This model also plays a crucial role in refining the design of the mine and its mineral processing strategy. This means that your capital gets allocated in the most efficient way, ensuring that every dollar is spent wisely. And let's not forget about its impact on mine planning and scheduling. It brings out technical improvements, especially on how blocks are selected and how different ores are mixed together in the short or to medium term. All in all, this model is a powerful tool that significantly enhances the decision-making process and operational efficiency. In the world of mining, geometallurgical variables are essentially the characteristics of rocks and minerals that play a critical role in shaping our business model. Think of these variables, the nuts and bolts that hold the potential to either make or break the economic success of a mining project. Antonio Salis, in his article Benefits of Geometallurgy, categorizes these variables into two main types. First up, we have what we call primary variables. These are the core properties of rocks that we can measure directly. This includes geochemistry, the grade of metal present, the density of size of the rock grains, how rock has changed over time, so its alteration, its strength, distribution of different chemical zones with it, such as where oxides meet sulfides. And we also look at the classification of the ore based on these properties and the presence of materials that could potentially cause issues like arsenic, as well as various geotechnical aspects that affect mining, such as the rock quality designation and fracture index. Now let's talk about responsive variables. These are all about how rock behaves when it's being mined and processed. Since we can't always measure these behaviors directly, we have to estimate them by analyzing the primary variables. And for instance, we might look at the things like throughput, which is how much ore can pass through the system. Also recovery rates, grindability, and how easily the ore can be ground down, and power consumption. So when you should really zoom in on geometallurgy. It's particularly crucial for projects that have a lot of variability or distinct zoning within the deposits, or when several deposits were being processed together. It's also key for revisiting projects with significant amount of old drill core under new economic conditions, and for tackling remote and deep deposits where drilling is feasible but bulk sampling is challenging. So we've touched on why geometallurgy is pivotal factor in assessing resources and its role as a modifier when we converting resource and reserves. But it doesn't stand alone. Other modifying factors include mining practices, economics, legal and regulatory frameworks, environmental considerations, infrastructure, social dynamics, and more. These factors touch on everything from determining the cutoff grade and scheduling production to managing costs, revenue, and overall financial analysis. While each of these factors is a topic of its own right, covered extensively in the literature, today we focused on giving you a snapshot of where geometallurgy fits into the bigger picture. So it's important to highlight the specific challenge encountered when attempting to automatically convert national classifications of reserves and resources. For example, categories B, C1, C2, or class codes 111, 2221, where these national classifications convert into internationally recognized categories like measured, indicated, proved as per critical template. So even with bringing documents that align with UNFC 2009 with the critical template, evaluating resources involves unique economic considerations tied to the legislative and taxation frameworks of each country. For example, an assessment report stating 10 million tons of reserves in category B from a post-Soviet country could, after automatic conversion, be equivalent to class code 111, which indicates commercial projects and aligning with the approved category in the critical template. Additionally, through 3D modeling and resource revaluation, 3 million tons might be reclassified to 221, indicated potentially commercial projects and aligning with the measured category. So this discrepancy often stems from variation in discount rates and the project minimum profitability level, which is determined by national regulations and codes and may be set by the government for a specific time frame. These factors influence how resources are classified on the state balance sheet as proved or probable reserves in categories 111 or 112. The concept of the cutoff grade also varies significantly between countries. While it may be defined for a certain period in government reports, which is typically ranges from 1 to 5 years, it is described as the minimum ore content necessary for delineating ore bodies in a vertical section along the workings, which differs from the economic understanding of cutoff grade. These differences can lead into significant variations in the calculations of tonnage, average content, and consequently the project profitability. A crucial aspect of any report is a clear statement regarding whether the mineral resources are reported in addition to or inclusive of the ore reserves. We also want to share insights into mining factors and non-technical challenges that often not comprehensively detailed in the in resource assessment reports which investors might face. So when we talk about mining factors, it's really important to ask whether detailed studies have been carried out on the geotechnical and groundwater conditions. These factors have a big impact on how the mine is designed and built, so it's crucial to conduct specific investigations to establish the right parameters for each situation, at least up to the pre-feasibility stage. For open mines, one major area to focus on is designing the slopes. This isn't just about the interface between the ore and waste. We also need to pay attention to the surrounding ground that is going to form the slopes of the pit. Getting the design of the slopes right is key to making mining operations economically viable, and it's all about maximizing values while minimizing risks. If software tools are being used to optimize pit operations, it's essential to clarify which initial factors were taken into account in the model calculations. It's also crucial to disclose whether any areas have been excluded from the model, like dump sites, tailing areas, or zones set aside for environmental protection. Now, let's delve into the unique world of mining consolidating deposits like alluvium, mineral sands, or sand. This involves a specialized approach within open pit mining, often using dredges or excavators within designated dredge ponds. When dealing with these operations, it's crucial to focus on several key factors. First off, we need to carefully manage the water balance of the operation to prevent any issues. We also need to ensure the stability of excavation phase and understand geotechnical properties of the tailings slurry or slimes produced during mining. Balancing the overall materials involved is also a top priority. So in our experience with mineral sands projects, we've encountered challenges such as flooding from both atmospheric and groundwater sources, as well as instances where the upper overburden ledges have slid or collapsed during the mining zone. These unexpected events have led to significant ore dilution, causing disruptions in processing plant operations that weren't initially anticipated or factored into the project evaluation. When it comes to designing underground mines, having a solid grasp of how rock mass will behave during excavation and mining practices is also absolutely essential. There are several factors to take into account. This includes designing support systems and pillars, understanding how caving works, and figure out the balance between the dilution and ore recovery rates. In the world of underground mining, dealing with groundwater inflow is a major concern, especially when establishing initial access points like shafts or declines. We need to be extra cautious when we're dealing with significant aquifers or areas with high permeability near the mining activities. It's also crucial to conduct flood risk assessments during data on rainfall or catchment areas. This helps us to anticipate potential flooding scenarios and plan effective drainage solutions for the mine site and its infrastructure. Additionally, we need to evaluate the chemical composition of the water to prevent its corrosive effects on metals and structures. So proper filtration and reuse of water for industrial processes are essential to mitigate these risks. In the open pit mining, groundwater management focuses on two main concerns: managing the and location of groundwater within operational areas, and addressing the impact of groundwater pressures on the stability of pit walls, pit floors, and in-pit waste dumps or spoil piles. When it comes to managing water resources, it's closely tied to evaluating the environmental effects of mining operations. This assessment needs to cover a range of factors, including how to handle hazardous wastes and byproducts, and the best strategies for storing waste and tailings. We need to keep an eye on issues like acid drainage, which leads to low pH, contaminants that dissolves at neutral pH, alkaline drainage that resulting in high pH, then salinity, radionuclides, and the presence of minerals that cause issues like asbestos, spontaneous combustion, and toxic elements such as arsenic or mercury. These are just some examples of potential negative impacts we need to consider carefully. Speaking of non-technological risks, they include geographic factors such as land access, land claims, bureaucratic hurdles, corruption, social and civil unrest, infrastructure challenges, natural disaster risks, including weather, resource nationalism, and labor relations. For instance, there have been reports where critical information was omitted, such as the presence of old cemeteries, residential area, stadiums, national significant gas pipelines, railway stations, and even environmental protection zones adjacent to mining operations. There have also been instances where unauthorized extraction of resources such as amber or construction materials like clay, sand by local residents went unreported. So while you may be quoted resources at 2,000 tons, the actual reserves could be significantly lower. Furthermore, there were situations where reports failed to mention that a pit had been submerged underwater for years. This oversight can drastically impact the quality of the extracted ores and compromise the stability of the pit walls. Hence, we always advocate for a site visit before making any investment decisions. Both Georg and NI43 course recommend site visit, but this advice is frequently overlooked. I don't know why. Additionally, there are instances where local communities living near a mining site block access, fearing that mining activities might lead to water scarcity or result in radioactive contamination. Their opposition can delay project development. However, such social concerns are rarely highlighted in reports. It's also crucial to consider weather patterns, the risk of natural disasters, and vicinity to potential military conflicts. Airborne geophysical surveys may be hindered by dense forestry, or mining and construction activities can face a long-term halt upon the discovery of significant archaeological finds. All these elements play a crucial role in the comprehensive assessment of the project risk and should not be overlooked. Numerous country risk compendiums are regularly updated to provide high-level insights on how risks vary across different jurisdictions, but this really should be considered as initial references. It's essential for companies to refine this approach by incorporating details specific to their circumstances, aiming to precisely evaluate and measure the actual risks they encounter, especially those stemming from non-technical risks. Other significant non-technical risks pertinent to the mining industry encompass fluctuations in commodity prices and foreign exchange rates. Moreover, businesses also face generic risks that are common across various sectors. At the corporate level, this risk amalgamate into what is known as going concern risk, reflecting the aggregate threat from unforeseen challenges, both technical and non-technical, to a mining company's sustainability. This risk escalates particularly when a company faces the financial burden of constructing a new mine before it has started generating revenue from its operation. This risk is mostly pronounced for a company whose new mine represents its inaugural asset. For the mining sector globally has increasingly recognized the significance of non-technical risks, acknowledging that they can be crucial, if not more so than technical risks. For instance, a mining claim or land access rights could become void due to changes in government policy or stance of a local landowner near the mine. So, in our discussion today, we aim to outline key considerations for evaluating before committing to a mining project investment. As we're wrapping up today's webinar, just wanted to remind those of you that head into PDAC about our event focused on investing in the mining industry. It's happening on Sunday afternoon, March 3rd. It's free for all PDAC attendees. So just scan QR code on the screen to register. We'll be discussing in more detail some highlights that we touched up today. So, all right, so let's bring back to the conversation our geologist Tatiana. We see if we have any questions. So, question one, what to do if an incorrect resource model was created by a contractor company and a report was compiled by another consulting company? Or, for example, the report contains gaps in geometallurgy. Who's responsible for reporting in this case?
Thank you, Anya. Estimation of ore reserves is very commonly a team effort, and it's recommended that where there is clear division of responsibility within a team, each competent or qualified person and his contribution should be identified and responsibility accepted for that particular contribution. If only one competent or qualified person signs the mineral resource or reserve documentation, that person is responsible and accountable for the whole of the documentation. And it's important in this situation that the competent person accept an overall responsibility for a mineral resource and or reserve estimate and supporting documentation prepared in whole or in part by others is satisfied that the work of the other contributors is acceptable.
So the other question is, what drilling methods are more reliable and representative for exploration?
As we talked before, it depends on your targets. It's really depends on your targets, because air core, the most quick, cheapest but least accurate, still very useful, but not a big deal if you are testing for trends and geochemistry, but very poor for resource estimation. If we talk about RC drilling, it's a quick, less cheap, more accurate drilling, very useful in defining mineralization close to surface, but can be difficult to define geological information, particularly structural information, for example, with the rocks smashed to bits. And if we talk about diamond drilling, clearly the best, but very expensive and slow in comparison to the other methods. But it enables you to see rocks from underground, measure, categorize, sample, and record exactly what you want. So it's up to you.
All right, so I think that's it for the questions from the audience today. Thank you so much, Tatiana. Thank you for creating this webinar. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, if you're gonna go to Toronto in the beginning of March, if you're going to PDC event, please stop by at our event, where we will invite more experts and we will discuss in more detail about all technical and not technical risks when it comes to investing in mining asset. Well, thank you so much, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Or see you at PDSC. Bye.